Why can so many Vietnamese people start a coffee business with just a few $100s? Have you ever wondered why you can find tiny coffee carts on almost every street in Vietnam? Some are no bigger than a closet. No tables. No fancy espresso machines. Yet every morning, people stop for a cup before work. Today, I want to show you how I started my own takeaway coffee cart in a quiet rural area of Da Nang, and why this simple business has changed my life. My alarm goes off at 4:30 every morning. Outside, the village is still asleep. I hear roosters, a few motorbikes, and sometimes the sound of the ocean in the distance. Running a coffee cart means nobody will open the business for me if I stay in bed, so I get up, prepare ice, milk, cups, and freshly brewed coffee. In Vietnam, morning coffee is more than a drink. For many people, it and appos is the beginning of the day. Construction workers, delivery drivers, office employees, and farmers often grab coffee before work. That and appos. That's why the busiest hours are between 5 and 7 a.m. My cart ISN and appos, tea in downtown Da Nang. It and appos. S in a peaceful countryside neighborhood. Most of my customers are local people. After a few weeks, I learned their favorite drinks without asking. One wants less sugar. Another always orders extra milk. Small details matter, and they slowly turn strangers into regular customers. Many people ask why I didn't in appos tea open a real coffee shop. The answer is simple: cost. Renting a storefront, paying deposits, buying furniture, and decorating can be expensive. A small coffee cart allowed me to start with very little money and much less risk. If I make mistakes, I can improve without carrying heavy debt. Not every day is easy. Rainy mornings can mean almost no customers. Sometimes I stand beside my cart for an hour waiting for someone to stop. At first, those days discouraged me. Now I understand they and appos. Simply part of running a small business. One thing I and appos VE learned is that success doesn't and appos tea happen overnight. Every new customer, every better cup of coffee, and every lesson from a slow day helps me improve little by little. That and appos is how many small businesses in Vietnam grow. Around 9:00 and appos clock, I clean the cart, count the cups I sold, and write down my daily numbers. I don't and appos tea only track money. I track progress. Each day tells me something new about my customers, my business, and myself. So, can a tiny coffee cart make me rich? Probably not, at least not yet. But it has given me something I never found in my office job: the freedom to build something with my own hands. Every sunrise is another chance to move one step closer to my dream. Maybe one day this little cart will become a real cafe. Until then, I and appos LL keep showing up every morning, serving coffee, meeting kind people, and enjoying this simple life in rural Da Nang. But if you and appos VE ever traveled through Vietnam, you might notice something else. Coffee carts like mine Don and appos tea just exist in one city. You and appos LL find them in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Da Nang, and even in the smallest villages across the country. Each one looks a little different. Some specialize in traditional Vietnamese coffee. Others sell fruit tea, matcha, or fresh orange juice. Many are run by young couples trying to build a better future. Others belong to retired workers looking for a little extra income. And some are family businesses that have been serving the same neighborhood for years. That and appos, that's one of the things I love most about Vietnam. People don and appos tea always wait until they have everything before they begin. They start with whatever they have. Sometimes that and appos just a folding cart, a few bags of coffee beans, and enough money to buy a weekend appos worth of ingredients. Growing up, I used to think that starting a business meant opening a beautiful cafe with modern furniture and expensive coffee machines. That and appos, that's what social media often shows us. But real life is very different. Most successful businesses here didn't and appos tea start that way. They started small, very small. Every morning, I see examples of that. The woman selling sticky rice from her bicycle. The elderly couple making fresh soy milk. The man repairing bicycles under a large tree. None of them have fancy storefronts. Yet they and appos VE built loyal customers over many years. In Vietnam, people often say that every honest job deserves respect. I didn't and appos tea fully understand that until I started working on the street myself. Selling coffee has changed the way I look at people. Before, I was usually in an office. Most of the people I met had similar jobs and similar routines. Now my customers come from every walk of life. A construction worker covered in dust, a fisherman returning from the sea, a grandmother buying breakfast for her grandchildren, a university student rushing to class. For just a few minutes every morning, our lives cross because of one simple cup of coffee. Sometimes they tell me about their day. Sometimes they tell me nothing at all. A smile is enough. One thing that surprised me was how quickly people remembered my cart. Not because my coffee is perfect. There are many people who make better coffee than I do. But because consistency matters. If you open at 5:00 and Oppos clock today, people expect you to be there at 5:00 and Oppos clock tomorrow. And the day after that. Little by little, trust becomes more valuable than advertising. I think that and Oppos is something many small business owners around the world understand. Customers Don and Oppos come back only because of the product. They come back because they know what to expect. Of course, not every day is successful. Some mornings I sell 20 cups. Other mornings I sell half that number. Weather changes everything. A heavy rain can empty the roads in just a few minutes. During the rainy season, I sometimes wonder whether opening that morning was worth it. But then I remind myself that every business has slow days. The important thing is showing up anyway. That and Oppos is probably the biggest lesson this little coffee cart has taught me. Success ISN and Oppos built on one busy morning. It and Oppos built on hundreds of ordinary mornings that nobody sees. The mornings when you wake up even though you and Oppos retired. The mornings when business is slow. The mornings when nothing exciting happens. Those ordinary days slowly become something meaningful. And maybe that and Oppos. That's why I enjoy this work so much. Every sunrise feels like a fresh beginning. Every customer brings a different story. And every cup of coffee reminds me that building a dream doesn't and Oppos always require a lot of money. Sometimes, it only requires the courage to begin. But there is another reason these small coffee carts exist everywhere in Vietnam. For many people, coffee is not just something they drink. It is part of the morning rhythm of the country. If you wake up early enough, before the sun rises, you can see a different side of Vietnam that many tourists never notice. The streets are quieter. The air is cooler. Small food stalls begin opening one by one. People sweep the front of their houses. Motorbikes slowly appear from the narrow alleys. And somewhere nearby, someone is already making coffee. In many Western countries, people often drink coffee inside a cafe, sit for a while, or take it to the office. In Vietnam, especially in smaller towns and rural areas, morning coffee is often quicker and more practical. People stop for a few minutes. They order their usual drink. They exchange a few words. Then they continue their day. That is why takeaway coffee works so well here. It fits naturally into the way people live. One of my first regular customers was a construction worker. He arrived almost every morning at the same time. He never needed to tell me what he wanted. After a while, I already knew. Less sugar, extra ice, a strong cup of coffee before a long day of physical work. Sometimes he would only stay for 30 seconds. Sometimes he would ask, "How is business today?" Those small conversations became part of my morning too. Another customer was an older woman who sold vegetables at the local market. She would stop by before sunrise, buy a cup, and then continue to her stall. One rainy morning, when there were almost no customers, she still came. She smiled and said, "I knew you would be here." That sentence stayed with me, because in that moment, I realized something important. A small business is not only about selling a product. It is also about becoming part of someone's routine. When people expect you to be there every morning, even on rainy days, trust slowly begins to grow. And trust is one of the most valuable things a small business can have. There are many mornings when nothing special happens. No big sales. No exciting story. Just the sound of ice dropping into plastic cups, the smell of fresh coffee, and people passing by on their way to work. But those ordinary mornings are actually what build the business. Little by little, cup by cup, customer by customer. Sometimes I think people imagine that running a coffee cart is simple because the cart itself is small. But a small business still requires attention every day. I have to wake up early, prepare ingredients, clean the equipment, check how much coffee is left, remember what sold well, remember what did not. If something runs out in the middle of the morning, I cannot just walk into a storage room and get more. Everything has to be planned in advance. That is one of the hidden challenges of working with a small setup. But it is also what makes it possible to start with little money. In Vietnam, many small businesses begin this way. Not with a perfect shop, not with a large investment, but with something manageable. A small cart, a small menu, a small number of customers at first. Then slowly, if people like it, it grows. I think this is one reason entrepreneurship feels more accessible here. People are willing to start small. They do not always wait until everything is perfect. Of course, that does not mean it is easy. There are still difficult days. There are mornings when I feel tired before I even open the cart. There are rainy days when the road stays almost empty. There are moments when I wonder whether I should have chosen a safer path. But then a familiar customer arrives. Or someone says, "Your coffee is good." Or I look at the notebook where I write down my daily numbers and realize that progress is happening, even if it is slow. 1 cup today, a few more tomorrow, a little better next week. That kind of progress is quiet. It does not look impressive from the outside. But over time, quiet progress becomes something real. Around 9 o'clock, the morning rush is usually over. The road becomes calmer again. I clean the cups, wipe the cart, and put everything back in order. This is the part that most customers never see. The business is not only the busy moments. It is also the preparation before sunrise and the cleanup after everyone has left. When I finish, I often sit for a few minutes before going home. The village is fully awake by then. Children are already at school. People are working. The morning has moved on. And I think about how this small cart has changed my life. Not because it made me rich. It has not. At least not yet. But it gave me a chance to build something with my own hands. It gave me a reason to wake up early. It introduced me to people I would never have met in an office. It taught me patience. It taught me consistency. And it taught me that a dream does not always begin with a big investment. Sometimes it begins with a very small cart on the side of a quiet road. Maybe one day this cart will become a real cafe. Maybe it will stay exactly as it is. I do not know yet. But tomorrow morning, before the sun rises over this rural part of Da Nang, I will wake up again. I will prepare the ice. I will brew the coffee. I will push the cart to the roadside. And I will be there when the first customer arrives. Because that is how this dream continues. Not all at once, but one ordinary morning at a time.